Today we're joined by Amir Lowery, former professional player and founder of Open Goal Project. Welcome to the Soccer Ladder. We're so excited to have you here with us.
Thanks, you guys. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I know time always flies, so I'm going to have Liam just get into the first question.
Can you give us a quick snapshot of your journey from playing to what you're doing now in youth soccer?
I will give you the short version. So I'm a DC native. I grew up here in Washington, DC. Obviously, played soccer from a very young age. I went to all DC public schools. I had tremendous parents who supported me in my journey, just like you, Liam. Always be grateful for that and everything your mom does to help you. But yeah, my parents really helped me out. The community around me really uplifted me. I was able to earn a scholarship, academic and athletic, to study at Wake Forest University. Uh, I, I played primarily defensive midfield throughout my career, and some. Are you a six?
Yeah, I'm a six.
All right, cool. We have that in common. So I played at Wake Forest. I got drafted after my senior year to MLS and played for the Colorado Rapids, then the Kansas City Wizards, the San Jose Earthquakes. I played in Carolina for the North Carolina FC. They used to be the Railhawks, and then also for Montreal Impact. So I had 5 teams. My career spanned 5 teams over about 9 seasons. And after that, I moved back home. I started coaching, and that's what brought me into my post career and my work with Open Goal Project and off the pitch, but still obviously very passionate about soccer.
Tell us about Open Goal Project, what it is you do, where you're located. Give us a scoop.
Open Goal Project is a nonprofit that I co founded and serve as the executive director for. We're based in Washington, D.C. This year, notably, we just hit our 10-year anniversary. So that was a huge milestone.
Congrats.
Thank you very much. And really, our journey has been one of, seeing this tremendously obvious issue of pay to play soccer, like I said, and working with young people in our communities to help them navigate the barriers associated with playing. And then from our earliest days, 10 years ago in 2015, we were just supporting a few players. So we were helping players and families who had exceptional talent to integrate with pay to play clubs, and then we're helping their parents navigate the system. We had some very powerful success stories. One young woman from our earliest program days, she actually just graduated from James Madison, and she played a grad year at George Mason University. So we had some proof of concept early in this, that we knew, okay, there's a lot of kids in our communities that can play at a high level. They're not getting the opportunities that they need because of all the barriers that exist. And through working with those players, we really figured out, okay, what are the gaps that exist? Okay, it became you need college prep and SAT tutoring and help with preparing for college, right? They needed academic support at points. They needed that strength and agility and conditioning training or rehab when they got injuries, right? And it's not just sufficient when you're playing at a high level to go to a normal doctor. No, you're going to someone sports specific. So we're closing those gaps. We're making sure they get to everything on time and making sure their transportation is good. These few players that we started with, they played for McLean's ECNL team, which is traditionally one of the best clubs in the country. So we're paying for their hotels and flights and all those things. And really throughout that process, we identified all the gaps and barriers that exist for kids trying to access the highest levels of the game. From that point, we were able to bring everything in-house because that model wasn't scalable for us. So as we got more demand for support from our community, we knew that we had to have our own programs that basically created the platform and removed those barriers. So now all of our programming is close to public transportation. You don't necessarily need a car to get there safely. We have bilingual staff members that can communicate with kids and families if need be. The cost barriers have been removed, and we've just created a really community focused infrastructure and environment that allows people to share resources and make sure that all of our kids can move in the right direction, in a positive direction. So we're now, our biggest programs are our soccer club, which is called DCFC. You can see the scarf over my shoulder. District of Columbia Football Club is our club. We have a summer camp that runs 6 weeks during the summer, and that's another big barrier people don't think about, a cost barrier, to play throughout the year. You probably need to go to some high level camps, right, to continue that development during the summer. So we have that, and then we have an in-house league for players age 5 to 12 years old, and that's like a feeder system or a platform for us to identify talent and players who are ready to progress into our club team. So that's our whole scope. This year we'll serve over 500 kids, and it's been a banner year for us. And we're just looking to continue scaling our impact. We've seen tremendous results so far. We've had over 20 players play at the collegiate level, and we have a lot of kids coming behind them that have goals and dreams of doing the same. So really just trying to continue making it more available, the game more accessible to more kids and more families from marginalized communities.
Oh, I love
Wow,
that. Thanks
pretty
for
cool.
sharing your story and for all that you do. I mean, I'm glad you mentioned the summer part of it too. The older you get, the more tournaments there are and like international travel, and it's busy and they got to keep going and
Hmm.
keep training. So, at what point did you realize you wanted to focus on improving the youth soccer system, not just playing in it?
It took me all the way until I finished my playing career and I moved back home and I started exploring coaching. And at that point, I knew that I wanted to invest in the grassroots level and use the game to uplift players and kids in my community and uplift my community as a whole. So I didn't really know that I would like coaching. Honestly, I didn't think that it was a pathway for me, but I tried it when I stopped playing, and I recommend any young player to at least try coaching younger players and just get a feel for it while they're still playing. Even young players as young as you, Liam, you can tap in with tots or 5 or 6 year olds and help them learn. I think it's, good for player development also. But I started coaching and I saw this gap, that Open Goal Project addresses. I saw how many kids were priced out by pay to play youth soccer. And in my case, I was working with a team that it wasn't representative of Washington, D.C. and the D.C. that I grew up playing in. So not only racial in terms of racial diversity, but socioeconomic diversity. So I started recruiting players from inner city DC to play on one of the first pay to play club teams that I was coaching in my post career. And that was really the genesis of our work and really what opened my eyes to how big this issue is and how prevalent it is and just how much needed to change to make sure that more kids from all different types of backgrounds were getting opportunities to play.
Interesting. I
Hmm.
know this is a hot topic right now. Pay to play. Yeah. I don't know a lot about it. You did Soccer Stars.
Then I went to MSC, which was pay.
Okay. And then to Meadowville.
Meadowville, which I also think was pay. The pre academy was pay, and now in Red Bull Academy, it's free. Everything's free.
The way you framed Liam was awesome. So just think about how much you started playing when you were how old, Liam?
4 or 5.
No, I think younger. I think like we literally had you next door at
Oh
soccer,
yeah, yeah, Super
like at
Soccer Stars.
3-ish.
3.
So even those, I would say, even those like TOTS programs where you get that introductory level is where pay to play starts. And then Liam's progression, right? You played, I don't know MSC. Met Oval is a pretty well well-known club, but it took you from 3 years old all the way to when you signed for and started playing for Red Bull Academy, that there was cost associated with his development, right? So I'm in a similar boat, but there weren't fully funded academies when I came out. But the other thing that's important is that there were a lot less costs associated with playing at the very highest level. Things were a little bit more regional and I think generally more accessible. Um, but if you think about that trajectory that Liam took and how much you all invested in him to be able to pursue his dreams, well, a lot of parents may not be able to put up that kind of money or don't have those kind of resources to be able to position a young player to be at the level required, to play at an MLS academy. So that's the talking point and the light that I tried to shed on the issue with regards to like playing at our top levels in our country. There's still a tremendous investment that happens before a young player enters that fully funded environment. And I think that because of that, well, obviously the talent pool is a lot more limited and it takes a lot, as you guys know, to reach a level where you're going to be competing, at an MLS academy or at a pro level academy.
Not just financially, but I mean, we are traveling a lot too,
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the good parent thing. But so I have a question though on pay to play. Liam only did soccer, so we only had him in soccer. That's all he wanted to do. But if a child does, let's say, gymnastics, don't the parents have to pay for gymnastics or baseball? I mean, whatever it is to keep them progressing, don't they pay for that?
Yes, and the issue of pay to play, I think, more broadly is it's not limited to soccer exactly. And I think that more and more you see it. Baseball, I've heard anecdotally that is tremendously expensive. You need a lot of resources. You need the time as a resource. A lot of people don't think about that. As a parent, you have to have a schedule that accommodates travel or accompanying your child. You need you need the transportation. You need a vehicle. If you have multiple kids, you might need two vehicles to navigate the transportation. So I think that the resources required to navigate any pay to play sport, soccer, I think is unique because it's become the higher level that you play at. Now, the more you have to travel, the more intensive the schedule is, and there's more of a sacrifice and more resources overall required from parents. But I think that's across the board with a lot of sports now, unfortunately. And you see a lot of families getting priced out. I think conversely, once you see private equity firms, which are private equity firms, getting involved in pay to play sport because it's a good investment, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, right? There's a lot of money that's exchanging hands, and it's big business. So I think that affects youth sports in a lot of ways, but especially youth soccer. And I think pay to play youth soccer has almost progressed more towards like the profit motive and the business of it, more towards that end versus about development and about, producing talent, about using the game, to develop character.
I think that's interesting too because you train how many days a week with Red Bulls?
4.
You have a game at least once a week. So 5 days a week he's committed to Red Bulls. But I mean, if he really wants to work on his development and like technical side, every getting better, he's got to have a private trainer
Yeah.
too.
It's the one-on-one training, yeah, because you're doing team training, and then there's a demand for that individual technical development. There's the strength and conditioning, or speed and agility.
Yeah, we're like just getting ready to tap into all of that additional stuff.
So there's a lot of things that that we've learned, and I mean, we've seen that are commonplace in pursuing the game at a high level. For example, to counter some of those things, we have a trainer. He's actually a former University of Georgia football player, but he does a lot of, strength, conditioning, core work, nutrition. He works with our kids on a whole range of things so that we close that gap and we have that in-house. Now it doesn't have to be, okay, parents are going out looking for this service a la carte. And then, hopefully in future seasons and years, we can have those technical training sessions so that kids don't feel like they're falling behind or they have to go out and, incur a cost to get that kind of development.
Looking back at your own development, what helped you most and what do you feel was missing?
Yeah, this is a great topic for me to touch on. I mentioned a little bit about it, but my parents were tremendously important and vital, I would say, to my development and my ability to pursue my dreams of playing at a higher level and at the highest level. So they were instrumental. They had time and we had reliable transportation and they could cover fees and we as much as we could helped other people in our community access my peers access practices games and just the experience that was the youth soccer community at that time. I would say I had some really enriching experiences with some great coaches, and that's something that I key in on when I talk about what's most important for young players. I think that having people that really care about you, not just about your development as a player, but about you as a person, and people that you can build genuine relationships with that aren't transactional, like sometimes pay to play can be transactional. But I was in a very fortunate situation and was around a lot of people who did care about me and had my best interests at heart, and I think those things went a long way. I also played in some very great environments. There's a lot of talent in the Washington D.C. area, so I was pushed and driven to be the best because I had a lot of good examples around me also, and I could see that players were progressing to play at higher levels. So it's fortunate in that sense. And then the one thing that I touch on, like what I was missing, would be probably some mental training. I didn't do much of that when I was young, and some emotional training. I think that the game, as I progressed through playing and now even as a coach, the game is always about managing emotions and, being in a good mental state and, figuring out how to navigate everything that's going on in your life, but still put your best foot forward. And I think that those things would have helped me as from a foundational perspective as I pursued higher level soccer. Um, but they weren't as focused on when I was coming out.
I feel like everyone that we've had on here has mentioned like how important the mental side of the
Mhm.
game is. And I just had on a National Women's Soccer League player, and she was talking about how she has a life coach. And I feel like, that's so important. And do you know Greg Garza?
Yeah,
I actually started, or we started Liam with Greg because they own
That's
Beyond
one of
Goals
his,
Mentor.
yeah,
Yeah, like, but it's like a life coach and talking about, the mental
not just
side of it.
soccer,
Yeah,
yeah, but like just life, how school's going.
life after soccer,
Yeah.
positive attitude, a whole host of things. So I think that is so important to like discuss and talk about as well for the growth of like the kid climbing that soccer ladder. Do you guys have that at Open Goal Project?
we do. I didn't mention that, but we do. I'm here in our office, and the building that we're housed in, that our office is housed in, we have co-working space here and flex space that we do youth development workshops in. So character development is the big catch-all, and I believe that character development goes hand in hand with talent development, right? You can't have one without the other, really. I think, oh, you can't have talent development or really pursue talent development if you don't have a strong backbone of character behind that, right? So we do a range of youth development workshops, just focusing on communication, conflict resolution, emotional intelligence and awareness. We roll in, like I said, some of the college prep things and, some of the more academic focused stuff. But from a social emotional perspective, we do lean into, a lot of those things that are going to help build up our young people and just help them operate more effectively as a group, as individuals, and as they go back into their communities and their lives.
Did you ever deal with like a difficult like coach?
Yeah,
Not every year you're gonna have like
The nicest coach.
yeah, the nicest coach or the coach that's
Favorites you.
yeah.
it's normal, first of all, I think, for any player who pursues the game at a very competitive level to have coaches that maybe don't see eye to eye with. Maybe your relationship is a little rocky, or maybe you have issues or you have moments with that coach. This is speaking for me as a coach also. I have, um, a lot of challenging moments with players, but I think that as long as, for me as a coach, as long as I have the player's best interests at heart, those situations are always going to go a certain way. The player might not always feel great if they've made a mistake, or I need them to course correct, or I feel like, from a character or, behavior, really, it's not about a lot of their actions on the field so much as it's going to be about their behavior or something that they're doing related to their teammates or an off-field issue. So I'm big on holding players accountable in that sense, which, can make that relationship challenging. But I think some of the best coaches that I've had have been the hardest on me, meaning I wasn't the player that they're putting their arm around and having a laugh and a joke with, but they were always challenging me and pushing me and seeing what else they could draw out of me. And I grew to like that over time. And I appreciated a coach that was going to be more about holding me accountable and holding me to my best standard, than one who might let me cut corners or so I've had some challenging moments with coaches in that regard, or coaches maybe that I didn't always see eye to eye with. But I think if you work hard, if you're a good teammate, if you're respectful, right, then you should be able to develop a rapport with any coach as long as they are also, right? They should be able to develop a rapport and build a relationship that allows you to still pursue your goals as a player. I think it's definitely not realistic to think that every coach that we have is going to be buddy buddy.
So I played college basketball, which is hard to believe. So my coach was extremely tough on me. He knew that's like what motivated me to do better. He would call me Miss America like during the game. Gosh darn it, Miss America, and I would be like, that's it. I'm gonna go run down the court and make a three-pointer in his face. Like, so I think sometimes that difficult coach or coaches know how to motivate a player too. Would you agree? Like,
Yes, I
do you
agree with that.
feel yeah. What gives you hope about the future of soccer in the US?
This platform to start,
Thank you.
enthusiasm and the passion you have for the game coming out in this format, me being able to talk to you from DC and you guys in New York.
I love that.
I think the passion for the game and the growth of the game entering a World Cup year is at unprecedented levels, and I think that there's a tremendous amount of potential that we have as a country, hopefully, at the highest level to challenge for World Cups and challenge for being one of the better teams in the world. And I think just beyond that, overall, the interest in the game and the exposure that it's getting I think has to be a positive for us over the long term. And it only seems like it's going to continue to grow. So that for me would be one of the brightest spots about the game in our country. There's still a lot of room for growth and improvement.
Predictions for the World Cup.
Oh man, on the spot. I think my semifinalists. How many do you want? What do you want? You want me to give you a winner or?
Let's do top four.
Top four.
Top
Yeah, top four. Top four.
Okay, this is without me looking at the draw and like really how everything would break out. But my team that I think will, find the right rhythm and excel at the World Cup would be Spain, France, Brazil, and Argentina. I think that it's going to be tough to dethrone Argentina and Messi. I think they're going to be firing on all cylinders and very energized to help him win again. I think a dark horse would be Portugal and Ronaldo's last World Cup. They have a very strong side as well. So, but the beauty of it is, not always the most talented, the team without the most talented players will win the World Cup, but the best team and the team that finds their right stride at the right time.
I think travel's gonna like play into it too,
Yeah.
right? It's gonna be exciting. And real quick, Lee, did you know he was in DC, obviously, at the final draw that I was at?
You didn't tell me that.
I know we were at the same event, but we didn't get an opportunity to say hello. Hopefully next time.
Maybe when you guys come down to DC, I'll come out and watch you play. I'm assuming you play DC United sometimes, right?
I think next year we definitely play it.
All right, I'll have to come check you out then.
Yeah, well, hopefully we see you somewhere along the lines before then. This was so fun. And I want to say also, like, thank you so much for like what you're doing. You're just as excited and you're like giving an opportunity to so many kids.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Liam. Really appreciate the opportunity. I'll be watching you, and best of luck as you keep pursuing it.
Well, have a good one. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
See you guys.
Thank you.